Hey folks, welcome back to Game Geeks. I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Today we are reviewing Holler. Yeah, you heard it. Holler, an Appalachian Apocalypse. I have a story to tell before I do this review. When I was in college, I was involved with the Wesley Foundation, which is the Methodist student ministry. One fall break, the only one I've ever had in my life, we decided to take a trip to Redbird Mission, which is in the far eastern portion of Kentucky. I went to Western Kentucky University for my undergraduate Go Hilltoppers. So we took a several hour trip out there. Redbird Mission is squarely in the middle of Appalachian country. And so we leave around 4 or 5 in the morning. We get there around 8 or 9. We all kind of pour ourselves into our seat. Everyone is asleep. Everyone slept in the van but me because I can't sleep in vehicles. And we're getting there, so everyone's like, drool dripping out of their faces, rolling down their shirts. So we're there, and we get the introductory and orientation interview by a woman who really loved her job. You could tell. So she's very deadpan when she's giving us this, and she's using an honest-to-God slideshow. I say this, and I'll point out, it was 1992 or 1993, so slides weren't completely out of phase yet. So she starts talking, and this is my impersonation of her talk. Welcome to Redbird Mission. Here we serve as the United Methodist Ministry to this part of the country in eastern Kentucky and parts of Tennessee and West Virginia. This area is noted for its mountains. So there's slides for each of these. This area is noted for its mountains and its hollers, which is, click, 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 a hollow place between two mountains. And there's a picture of this lovely valley with some trailers in it or something. And then she goes on to talk about the geography, the animals that live in the area, some natural hazards, all of which tend to live in the hollers, which is, of course, click, 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 a hollow space between two mountains. That woke me up a little. And it's the same picture, too. Did that happen? I look around, everyone else is nodding off or bright-eyed. Nothing like happy young Christians. And so this went on and on for a while, and then people here have poor health care, very low income, severe drug problems, and everyone lives in the hollers, which is, of course, click, 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 a hollow space between two mountains. This goes on for 12 to 15 minutes. She says it 8 or 9 times. I'm not kidding. None of this is exaggerated. So she gets to the end, and of course the last thing she says, and again, I'd like to point out the most famous feature of the region, which is the hollers. Click, 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 same picture. A hollow space between two mountains. I'll take any questions. Don't you do it, Kurt. Don't you. What's a holler? Click, click, click. A hollow space between two mountains. I swear on the ghost of E. Gary Gygax, every bit of that story is true. So now, flash forward. What's that got to do with the game I'm reviewing? Well, the game's set in Holler, and I like to tell the story because it's one of the funnier things that's ever happened to me. I figure I was in someone's performance art or something. All right, Holler is a Savage Worlds game. It is set in a fictionalized region in Appalachia. It is not specifically in West Virginia or Kentucky or Tennessee. What has happened is this very large area has been invaded, not necessarily by the forces of evil, at least not directly, but by the big boys, which is several very large, very powerful industries have come in to essentially strip mine the area of all of its resources and all of its valuables, have polluted and tainted the area with this supernatural miasma called the blight, which has terrible effects both ecologically and on people. They run their company towns very dictatorially, about like what you'd expect, controlling their employees by making them live in company housing and taking the rent out of their checks to start with. They have to buy everything from the company store. Repairs on their houses may or may not happen based on punitive measures. So, as you can imagine, this is one of the darker settings I've seen coming for Savage Worlds. It really walks up to that line where I'm mildly uncomfortable just thinking about it, maybe because I've been to the area and I'm from Southern Ohio. The author describes this as Appalachian dark pulp gothic, dark fantasy, and folk horror. So the PCs can be anything from moonshiners to bluegrass pickers, which are sort of like your bards. The moonshiners create potions. Granny women, who are sort of... I'm sorry, my iPad gets texts. The granny pickers, which are sort of the wise old woman, they have powers too, but all their powers are fueled by trinkets, mugwort, eye of newt, etc. They're basically witches, but they're also the spiritual caretakers of a community. On top of all of this, you have to deal with the big boys, their bully boys, the indoctrination they're doing, demons, which are the spirits of people that have died suffering from the blight and come back as monstrous creatures, haints, which are the walking dead, and cryptids, more on that in a minute, I got a real kick out of that section, and finally the Fae came along from the old world. This is a different tone and feel than almost any other Savage Worlds setting I've seen. I'm intrigued by it. As we've established, I'm not much on Westerns. I like Deadlands, but I'm not much on Westerns. I'm running a Lost Colony game right now, which is the tits. But there's something about this that I actually really enjoy. Like, I'm hoping it shows up on Roll20 soon so I can run this for my group. So all your characters are human. Sorry, Matthias, you don't get to play a tiefling. There are a couple new skills: distilling, folklore, and folk magic. Arcane backgrounds include the blessed, who are the holy rollers. These are the severe Christians, as opposed to the preachers or the ministers, who are religious leaders hired by and used by the big boys, those companies, for indoctrination of the people. And finally, the moonshiner, who's essentially a potion maker. The blight is this omnipresent and evil miasma that causes mutation, destructions to the PCs and in the environment. If you're ever exposed to it, you make a spirit roll. If you succeed, you're okay. If you fail, you gain the demon shakes, which can lead to any number of nasty things, include killing you and you coming back as a demon. Now, a little bit more on the big boys. It's not one monolithic industry. There are several that came over. One of the things that happened was one of them invented the necrolitine ray, which was the vaporous metal that actually sealed off the region into a pocket dimension in time and space. Escape is virtually impossible. You can try to walk through and you roll a d6. On a 1, your character disappears and is never seen or heard from again. Congratulations. Start over at novice. You could reappear sickened. You could reappear anywhere in the Holler, like randomly determined, or you could actually get a vision of the big city, which is sort of this mythical thing outside of the Holler where all the big boys came from, and gain a point of conviction. The big boys, they tend to fund their scientists and engineers with technomancy. And none of it is particularly pleasant. It's weird science, but it's not fun weird science. It's bad weird science, like the TV series. Now, the cryptids are what I really came here for, because as a guy who grew up in rural southern Ohio, legends of things like the Mothman, which pops up in here under the name of the Moth, which appeared right before a bridge collapsed, Point Pleasant, I'm looking at you, are there, as well as something as horrifying, and this was absolutely terrifying for me, a rabid elk. For some reason, I never thought of something like an elk becoming rabid, but that is bow-wateringly terrifying to me. There are a very large and intelligent, human-level intelligence type of wolf called the Fenrir, and the alpha Fenrir who can speak and you can talk to and communicate with. Nothing in that says that it likes you and that it won't have a conversation with you right before it tries to have you for a snack. But you never know. It's worth a look. folks, the final thing I want to talk about in the bad guys in this are the machines of death, which are giant contraptions that have been created by the big boys. One of the secrets of this game and this setting is that when they set up that boundary that separates the Holler from the rest of reality, the big boys don't know how to get out either. They don't admit that, they don't talk about it, but they don't know what's going on either, and they are desperately seeking a way to undo that, because right now, everyone is trapped in the Holler. As the heroes, the odds are stacked against you, the likes of which I haven't seen since All Flesh Must Be Eaten or War of the Dead. I am intrigued to run this. I'm hesitant because every once in a while I can get a little too gleeful with my evil. And now that my daughter's in the group, she kind of keeps me in check with that. Like, Dad, that's not cool. I am. So, Holler, Appalachian Apocalypse. Honestly, one of the most fun and entertaining settings I've seen come out of Savage Worlds in a while. It's also one of the most original. The author is from Appalachia and is a Appalachian scholar. So he really knows his stuff, and I think it's fantastic that he's been able to parlay that into this game. For Game Geeks, I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Good day and good gaming.